Hello. You are joining the Age of Quarantine, the St. Vitus Bar nightly live stream. We've got one of my favorite photographers, period, but live music photographers specifically. Ebru Yildiz, who I'm going to have to ask her to teach me how to pronounce that, will be on shortly. She's amazing. She has been photographing for basically like every publication you can think of. It's, I've seen her work for Brooklyn Vegan, I've seen it for Pitchfork, I've seen it for Rolling Stone. She's done stuff for labels, promo shots. Like if you see a band promo shot, you've probably seen one of Ebru's photographs. She's done work with Marissa Nadler. She's done lots of work with you name it, she's done it. But on top of everything, she's also just a phenomenal live music photographer, which is something I think is super cool. So I'm gonna see if we can get Ebru to, and we'll see if this works. But yeah, if you've never joined, hello.
Hey, hold on.
How's it going?
Good. How is it going with you?
Good. The internet.
Wait,
It's so nice to meet you.
Same here. Same here. I'm adjusting my volume.
You're good.
There you go. Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
So, just for anybody who hasn't joined us before, if you want to ask Ebru a question, you can, in the little dialogue box down at the bottom of your screen, there should be an option. So, don't be shy, because otherwise I'm just going to be here just punishing Ebru about how cool her work is. So, all right. Let's get down to brass tacks. So I know I did a little bit of research just ahead of getting to talk to you, so that I would know a couple of things beyond just seeing your work and thinking it's awesome. I guess just to kind of get started a little bit, I think if you could tell us a little bit how you got into photographing live music, I think it's really neat. So.
Well, that's actually how I started photographing anything, period. It is okay, so I'm from Turkey. I grew up in Turkey, and even there, I was really into live music because that's how I enjoy consuming music the most. And when I moved to New York, it was it kind of took me a while to figure out where the live music was happening, but when I started realizing where the local bands are playing and all that, I started going out a lot. And at the same time, I was taking this darkroom class at Pratt Institute. And I was trying to figure out what I want to photograph. I really enjoyed photography. I really enjoyed developing my film. I really enjoyed printing it, but I just I just couldn't find what I wanted to photograph, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and it is at the same time I started going out every night, and I was going to these shows, and after a while I needed kind of a purpose. And my the darkroom teacher I had, he was you gotta find something other than pigeons. You have to find something you like to photograph, because otherwise these photos are so boring. So I took my camera to a show and I started photographing like that, and that's kind of the start of it. And then
that's
whenever
amazing.
whenever I went out, I took my camera with me, especially when I didn't have friends to go with. So it's kind of kept me company in a way.
Yeah, I mean, and this, it was not to, talk about, dating you or anything, but this was before people, had smartphones to, stare into, to pretend, that they were talking to someone if they went to a show alone, or... Yeah. So, and one of the things that I think is kind of amazing about the way that you're telling this, too, is, you were going with darkroom photography to shoot these bands in terrible dark rooms.
Yeah, tell me about it. It is but it is you get one exposure, and it's kind of a win. And right now I feel everybody is so spoiled with digital, because when I was shooting, it is film is expensive now, but was expensive then too. So I would only have like 36 shots for each band basically. So it is not as if like I can do like so many. But if one came out of that 36, I I was happy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think also it's one of the things where it's very obvious in the shots that you take that you're like really thinking about the moment and the frame and like the composure, like or the composition, like the way that you shoot live music, like it's very thoughtful, I think, in a way that it's like not everybody has that luxury because they are so used to just being able to kind of click click click. And I think
Yeah, it is also like part of editing too, though. Like, it is like I always think that it is kind of like amazing that like so many people would go into a photo pit and shoot the same show with like
yeah.
similar cameras, but come out with like completely different photos. But it is
Yeah.
like a matter of like you might even be like standing in the same spot, but like you get something else because you like something else.
Yeah, it's funny. I had Andre Cortes that I got to talk to him a little bit about his photography. And while I was looking at his photos ahead of things, I figured out that he and I had been standing next to each other in the photo pit at Swans once. But to your point, like people like have different eyes, they have different editing processes. Like the frame is sort of just like the beginning of the photo. Like the shot is kind of how everything starts. But I think it's really cool because you have this like very strong foundation that I think not a lot of people can say that they have.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I told you I was just gonna yell about how cool you are for like an hour.
I'm already red, like I'm burning up. I can't tell.
I've got good lighting right now, so I'm very washed out. So the red.
No, you look amazing. You have perfect colors.
But so I guess one of the things that I thought was really compelling about the way that like you talk about your work is the sort of the process of photographing musicians in general. Because the people that you shoot outside of live music photography tend to also be like musicians by trade. I'm sure that you've done other photographs, but the stuff that I've seen for the most part has really been this like band photos, like promo shots, portraits for publications, things like that. And I think, could you talk a little bit more just about how you got into shooting those types of photos, as well as sort of like a little bit how you approach that process?
Yeah, sure. Well, it is like, I mean, I really enjoy live music and like I love photographing it too, just because like you literally can't control anything about it, like including light. You can't direct the people. So it is kind of like perfect for a person like myself, meaning like I'm usually like super shy. I can't talk to a person unless they talk to me first. Like, it's just like all sorts of like emotional barriers that I have to go through. So, but even though I like that so much, my first love was always like, I'm like really interested in people, like really, really like find everyone so fascinating. So making portraits was always my dream, but I just like didn't have the courage to ask people if I can photograph them and all that.
It's hard.
It is really hard. Like, I mean, even right now, like, I like super rarely reach out to people, to say, hey, can I make your photo? Like, it is just super difficult. So like as I was doing like live shots and I'm an immigrant, so like for the longest time I was on a work visa, meaning I couldn't actually do any jobs other than my full-time job. And so for that reason photography was always something that I was doing for myself. And once I got my green card, which took me like 14 years, no big deal. I was like, you know what, like, I'm just going to try it out. And I started reaching out to magazines, like the ones that I wanted to shoot for. That's how I got into like shooting for other people. And then like, then people find your work and then ask you if you would do like promo shots. So that's like how I got into it. But of course, like first I was shooting like the people that I knew, like portrait wise. But then, like, you know, and it is easier, like, you know, once
Yeah.
they reach out to you, and when you're like, you know, when you're one-on-one with a person, I'm usually like good with that. I just can't do the first introduction part, I guess. So yeah, like, so that's how I started. And you know, usually the way I approach the portraits is I kind of let people be, like, for a bit at the beginning, like, you know, I chat with them to see, like, you know, how they're doing, what they have in mind. So I kind of, like, you know, that's kind of like the time that you observe them, like how they move their hands, or like
Yeah.
how they smile, how they talk, what is their body language. And also before that, I always do my research. I look at like what they have done so far, what their music sound like, and all that. So I have like an idea, because I don't want to repeat what they've done, because you know,
Yeah.
like with iPhones and like, you know, selfies and stuff, people have like a very specific idea of like how they look good. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you see people doing selfies on their Instagram, you see that
Yeah,
it's
like,
always like at a certain angle, and then, you know, they expect you to do the same, because their assumption is that's like, I mean, this is like just a small example, I guess. But what
but
I'm
it's
trying to,
fascinating.
yeah, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, like, I want it to be like, of course I want them to like it, but I also want it to be my photo too. So I do the research, I develop my own thoughts, and according to that, like, I take it from there. Did I answer your question? Was that even your question? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that was definitely part of it. Well, and it's funny because one of the things that I saw in an interview that you had done, you even talked about like reading people's lyrics and stuff, which I
Oh
just think is
yeah.
like, I don't know, I just
Oh
think
my God,
that's like
that's
a
like,
really cool research step.
yeah, that's like, I always ask for lyrics, like, but before the album came out, it is always a hustle, because nobody has them written down. So they're like, really? Do you really need them? Are
Yeah.
you sure?
Like, you've got
I
a
like
layout
lyrics.
coming out. Like, you should have these.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think lyrics are like super important. Some people are like really into their lyrics, and they give like really importance. For some, it is, you know, they use their voice just like another instrument, so maybe not so much for them. But I think, you know, lyrics, like, I love lyrics. Like, you know, it is kind of like knowing where they're coming from. And
Yeah.
and also, like, me being, you know, from Turkey, like, as I was growing up, the internet wasn't like the way it is. So kind of like the lyrics were what I made them of. Like, you know, I would just make them up just because I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I
So that,
definitely, I have a few songs where like the mistaken lyric that I thought it was is like the one that I remember, not the
but
real
aren't
ones.
those like like, aren't those the best? Like, you know,
Yeah.
because that's like, that's what it means to you. That's what it means to you.
Yeah, I think there's an entire somebody wrote like a whole book where they collected a bunch of them called I think it was called When a Man Loves a Walnut because somebody thought when a man loves a woman was when he makes her a walnut.
That's
So
kind of perfect.
yeah, I always thought that was really cute. But yeah, no, well, and I think one of the things that I thought was really interesting about like the way that you approach your work is like in addition to, you know, taking a nice photograph of somebody, you are also like really trying to get a sense of like who that person is before you approach the photograph. Because like obviously to your point, it is like you are taking a photograph of them through your eyes. But I thought it was really interesting that you like really take the time to kind of like try and get to know them as a part of this process.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure I've
but
ever really like seen another photographer talk about it that way.
no, but it is like, that's, I think that's like the fun part. That's what I mean with like when I say like I really find people fascinating. Like, I really, really mean it. And I was actually, the other day I was thinking of this analogy. Like, I love like when I'm walking at night. You know, I see, like, you know, sometimes you can see through people's apartments. You see like
Yeah,
where they hang their thing, like if it is like a moody looking apartment, if they have books, if they have
yeah,
records, like, so you kind of get a glimpse of that person, like, you know, what they like, are they a tidy person, whatever, like, you know, you just like, as you're passing by, you kind of get a
just yeah,
split second idea of what that person might be. And I I think that's like perfect for portrait photography too, because you know when you're doing the portrait, you kind of get an idea of the person, but it is not like you're just like seeing this much of it, but it is
Yeah.
still like it's like I find it very interesting, like you know how is their day been like, or what did they eat that day, or did they have a good night's sleep? I don't know, like it's just interesting, like or did they are they coming from a big
Yeah.
breakup? Everything is like
Well,
I don't know, everything like combined makes like the photo, so it's kind of like an
yeah.
exchange between that person and the photographer.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think sort of like with live music as well, because that is such like a four-dimensional experience where like it's an experience that happens over a period of time. Like
Yeah,
music photography is sort of a strange thing because it's capturing this like very like visual but also like auditory experience, this like very visceral thing, but it's like just a moment, and like
yeah,
seeing if you can get as much of that moment to be representative of like the sound and the feeling and all that stuff, I think is sort of
yeah.
um and
It is like it is documentation. Even the
yeah.
portraits are documentation of that person at that time.
Yeah, well, but I think also it's sort of interesting because like the photographer is sort of part of that documentation as well, because it's sort of like how that person has experienced the moment as well. And I think that that really comes through in a lot of the way that you shot live music, for example. um, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about your Death by Audio project,
Okay, my favorite.
because I know, you know, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you put together a book of Death by Audio photographs that are like stunning. But I want to talk a little bit because it's called The Last Days of Death by Audio, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk just a little bit about like sort of the genesis of the project and kind of how you kind of got started with that idea?
So, like you know, for those people who doesn't know what Death by Audio was, it was a DIY music venue. But it is like you know, see, when you say music venue, it kind of like diminishes what it was because you know people were living in it. There was like the pedal factory was in it. There was a rehearsal place. There were like houses, like apartments for like the you know people were living in it. So it was kind of like a some kind of communal living space that happened to have a venue
Yeah,
as well in the front
with
of the
some gorgeous
building.
art up too. Like there was just
Yeah,
art all over the walls. It was so cool.
yeah, they had like lots of murals by different artists, and I know that you know some of them were like rotating. They had arcades. The arcades are right now at Wonderwell, DBA arcade. People should check it out. So yeah, like they were, you know, they were. It was an awesome space, and it is a place that I'm really emotionally attached to because it was actually, you know, Death by Audio is found. One of the founders is Oliver Ackerman, who is the lead singer of A Place Where Strangers, and it was one of the very first local bands I photographed. And you know, talking about like
Nice.
dark,
Yeah.
like I mean, like they had literally one safety bulb that was like the first show I photographed them was like that,
I,
and they were like literally passing in and
yeah.
out of that light, and I actually got like my favorite photos from like
Yeah.
those are still some of my favorite
Yeah.
photos.
I loved going to shows there, but I like, and I loved a handful of the photos that I got there, but oh my God, it was such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, actually, the you know the first place I photographed A Place Where Strangers was this place called Coral Room, which is like I think it was like in Meatpacking District, Chelsea, like somewhere there. Uh, it was actually the mermaid bar, and they had like a ginormous fish tank that real mermaids were living, swimming in it. But anyway, so going back to that by audio, so the first local band I photographed was A Place Where Strangers, and Oliver like was already making pedals and whatnot, but he got, like him and a bunch of his friends got this space and started the place. So it is like even from the beginning, like very beginning before they got into that space, like I got to see it like without anything in it. Like they didn't even build the second floor or the rooms or anything. So it is like kind of like the first place I felt really comfortable. So it had a special place in my heart. And overall, like over the years, their booking got like really good. Like at the beginning, the way they started is they were just like all over, and their roommates, they were all in like different bands, and they were like throwing shows to buy construction materials so that they can build out their rooms basically. So that's why they started like, you know, throwing shows just so, you know, they can pay for it. So that's kind of how it started. But eventually the booking got like really good. All of these out of town bands would come, you know, like whenever they're in New York, they, you know, they'll play there. You know, the OCs, Ty Segall, the bands like,
Yeah.
you know, them, like even though they can play like, I don't know, Warsaw, they'll still
They would
play
also
at the audio show. Yeah, so it was like, it was a really cool place. And then eventually Vice Media
yeah.
moved into that building. And at the beginning, everybody was psyched because, you know, Vice Media did so many pieces about Death by Audio. They interviewed them, they did mini documentaries, so they thought they would be cool, but unfortunately they weren't. So they realized that they're gonna get kicked out, so they decided to go out with a bang basically. So they threw a party for like months basically. So every night they invited somebody else, and nobody knew who was gonna play that night, but still people would line up, you know,
Yeah.
just to be there. So the book that you're talking about, the book that I put out, documents the last 75 days of Death by Audio. So it is a documentary project, but there are also some portraits in it, documentation of the shows, the people who are living in it. And it, when I first started it, I didn't think of it as a book, but like 2 weeks into it, I'm like, oh my God, I already have so many photos. This has to be a book.
You're like, holy shit.
And
yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, and also it felt so special. Like, you know, it is what, I mean, it may not mean that much to some people, but it really means a lot to me. And I know it meant a lot to those people as well, because it is kind of like everybody's home away from home, basically.
Yeah, and it was for folks who weren't around or didn't get to go to shows there, it was also just this like sort of autonomous, like uncommercial, like kind of
Exactly.
space. Yeah.
Exactly. And it is like, you know, it is always all ages, cheap beer, good music. And, you know, like whenever you go there, you know, you're going to run into someone that you know, it is,
yeah, and they had like they would put on all sorts of stuff too. Like it wasn't just one sort of niche genre or like one like music network community. Like there were like all sorts of overlapping weird things playing there. So I thought that was always really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's what makes it so special too.
Yeah. It sort of like, because I think now, like especially, I mean, I think Vitus, we have a reputation for being like a punk and metal bar. We do have a lot of other stuff that comes through, but like we do have that reputation.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Death by Audio just kind of was like, fuck it, anything goes. Like if we like it, it's here.
They kind of that's definitely was their attitude. But they also like, I also thought that like, you know, there was Glasslands and 285 Kent within the same block, and you know, when you think of it like those different venues right next to each other, even though Death by Audio had like so many different kinds of music coming through, but still they kind of have, it kind of feels like they all had their own niches in a way, but not as definitive as Saint Vitus, of course.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I definitely went to some shows at Death by Audio, but I definitely remember going to more of them at 285 Kent because that's just kind of how it played out, as those were sort of the ones I was more interested in going to. We do have a quick question. Hi, Marianne. Marianne Ventries wants to know where we can get a copy of the Death by Audio book if we're interested.
Wow, I mean, several places actually. If you want to support your local bookstores, Spoonbill in Williamsburg has it, and Rough Trade has it. Death by Audio Pedals has it on their website.
Oh, nice.
Famous Class has it, and I also have it on my website as well.
Cool. All right, that's a bunch of awesome places that you can acquire the book.
Yeah.
And I guess Marianne messaging also just kind of reminds me of one of your other projects that's kind of more ongoing, and that's currently in a show in Philadelphia. So if you can talk a little bit about, for the record, your ongoing photography project and a little bit about sort of how that first show opened, because I think that's, a lot of why we're sitting here talking like this and not face to face.
Yeah, that's, oh my God, that's so true. And it is still hanging. But so for the record, well, okay, so I always thought that like, so because of the way I work, I get to meet lots of people that work behind the scenes, like, managers, sound engineers, publicists, people who work at record labels. So they're like all sorts of like amazing people that put their like literally heart, soul into all these musicians, like, and for their success. And I always thought that that's like, the coolest thing ever, because it's so selfless to do all that work, knowing without, getting any credit. And it is, I don't know, I thought it is so beautiful. And, most of these people, I know them for years at this point, but it is always emailing or messaging or, whatever is arranged, it is always like over email. So I realized I actually don't know what they look like most of the people. I don't know. Like, I mean, if we are at the show standing next to each other, I wouldn't know them. Like, so I was like, oh my God, since like, they put all their energy into these other people, I wanna put the spotlight on them. But it was something that I started doing like on my spare time. So it is kind of like, oh, I have like no shoots this week. Let me see if this person would be up for getting their photo taken. And so like, speaking of having difficulty reaching out to people, this was like definitely like a test of my strength in that sense. So I started doing these photos back in 2019. And like I photographed like 13, 14 people in total, but I was going at my own pace. So then Brandon Stossy and Caleb, oh my God, I can't pronounce Caleb's last name, I'm just realizing.
I think Caleb? It's Broughton, but I might be butchering that. So Caleb, if you see this, I'm really sorry.
Caleb from Sacred Bones, they both were about to start curating the gallery space at TVI, which is other awesome venue bar in Ridgewood, Queens, right? Ridgewood. Yeah, I think it's like border, like Bushwick, Ridgewood. So I went to check out the space, and it is like and we were talking, and they're asking me what I'm working on, and like I said, like, oh, I have this project. And I was thinking like the phosphines, which are my zine project. So I was talking about them, and then in passing I mentioned, oh, I also been photographing women in music who works behind the scene. And they got like super excited, and they said like, let's do the first show with this, like it would be perfect. And I was like, and they're like, how soon can you hang the show? I had like 13 people, and I'm like, I at least need like 30 people, not 13, because like I'm thinking like it is, in order for it to feel like a community, it has to be like more people, and even 30 is like so little. So I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do before I commit. I'm gonna send an email out to people I know to see if anyone would be into it. So I sent out a bunch of emails, but like way many more than I thought I could shoot, thinking nobody's gonna say yes.
And of course.
And and they all said yes, and they recommended other people. And by the time show opened, I had 68 women's photographs. So I dropped like literally everything, because like, after you reach out, you cannot be like, okay, maybe not this round, I'll shoot you the next time. There's no way I'll do that. So I literally dropped everything and started shooting 68 women. And the show opened, I really wanted to open on Women's Day, which is March 8th, 2020. If anyone is watching this in the future, you would probably know about what happened next. But well, anyway, so and there's like the talk of coronavirus, but nobody's taking it serious. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't think anybody would come to the opening just because, like, I don't know how anyone was
Yeah.
feeling then. And so it was a great turnout. It was packed, like it was really, really very crowded. And at the beginning, I was like shy. I didn't know if anyone would want to be hugged because we didn't even know how this virus transmitted entirely.
Yeah. I
So
remember.
I hugged
I think I read.
everybody.
Yeah.
I kissed everybody.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, TVI shut down because there was someone in the audience that tested positive. And so, like, and I freaked out, of course, thinking like, oh my God, I transmitted to one by one to every single person, and I'm gonna wipe out all the women behind the scenes.
Oh, no.
It was super stressful. Like I stressed out so much, and it felt like that. Like I'm like, oh my God, everybody's gonna die. It's
like,
gonna
oh,
be my
no.
fault because I
single-handedly
carried it.
killed all of the women working in backstage.
And these are like the last photos of them. But no, yeah, I mean, like I'm laughing, but it was really like,
I mean, that sounds terrifying. But
yeah, I got like now I'm laughing, but I got in a really deep depression for the first 3 months, and it kind of started with that. So now I'm better. Now I'm like feeling much better, but virus is still here, and it definitely transmit, like, because I remember when I was telling people who came to the opening that somebody tested positive, but thank God, like, they didn't have symptoms, which means that they weren't like contagious, which turned out to be total
but that was
bullshit.
what they were telling us, is like, which is bullshit, and I was mad about it at the time, but
but I mean, like, that's what the government is saying, so why not? Like, it sounds okay. Like, I mean, it was just so stupid, so crazy.
Exactly.
But anyway, so turns out there were actually 5 people at the opening who tested positive the following week. But
oh
I mean,
God,
like,
that's terrifying.
But it wasn't one of those super spreaders or anything like that. But TVI, like, the people behind TVI, they're like really awesome people. They're like, they immediately, and this is, you have to understand that this is at a time where nobody was closing. There were like no limits on anyone.
I remember
they decided to close it. Yeah.
I remember seeing them close and be like, oh my God, well, first of all, like, I'm really glad they're taking it seriously, but also like, oh, this is fucking serious.
Yeah.
I was
so happy with how they handled it.
No, it was definitely like an absolute testament to the folks that own that place. I guess one of the other things, like, so I got to see the photos because I got that zine as part of my like NYC Nightlife United Kickstarter backer. I picked that one because I was like, oh shit, I never got to see this. But as part
it is still hanging. It is still hanging at TVI. Sometimes
I'll see if I can get someone to let me in, like, by myself and just like creep around in the dark.
It is also and like
it's also in Philly.
It is. I'm showing those photos again at Big Day Film Big Day Film Collective, which is in Philly. It is run by an amazing woman, Jackie. I don't know if she watches this. I'll say she's also herself a photographer, and she recently opened up her own gallery, and this is, if I'm not wrong, her 3rd show there. And it was supposed to be only last month, but she wanted to extend it, so so
Big Day Film Collective is watching the stream and so but that's actually sort of an interesting segue too, because I know it was sort of one of your other sort of projects following like the quarantine, like the beginning of quarantine. Was doors open, right?
Oh no.
Sorry, I know I just broke up there for a second.
Got cut off for a second. It is called Closed Doors Open Hearts.
Always a little squirrely.
Yeah.
Yes. So could you talk a little bit more about that project? Because I know that was one of the, is that one of the NYC Nightlife United
Yeah,
awards as well? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So in my okay, so I'm just gonna tell it like a story, continuing from the
You're,
TBI thing. So it's just kind of like this is turning into my quarantine quarantine experience in a way. So like I said, I got into a really deep depression. Like the first few months, I couldn't even lift my finger. Like it was so bad.
mm-hmm.
And then like I started like, okay, I have to bring like some positivity in my life. So I started actually posting photos of the woman from For the Record, and I was just like putting something positive about them and about my experience with them, just to bring like a little bit positivity into their lives and into mine too. And like 68 photos later, I was feeling so much better, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to do, like I felt like I just need to do something. And this is when at this point George Floyd uh, died, and there are all these protests going on, and people are like trying to do like things to be helpful in some ways. And I'm like, oh my god, I have to do something as well. And then Ed Hogg, who is like one of the co-founders of NYC Nightlife United,
Yeah, yeah,
I know those guys. So I reached out and I said, look, I have all these photos. These are all like, you know, behind the scene people, but why don't I turn this into like a zine? Maybe you guys could sell, like we could sell it, and you know, you can use the money to give it as grants. And you know, just for the people who doesn't know what NYC Nightlife United is, it is like basically a grant program which you know, they give grants to BIPOC and LGBTQIA members of nightlife. But this is not only like music venues, but it is like, you know, performance venues. Like it is not only like one specific thing, but it is a really big umbrella. And so I, like I said, I reached out to them and said, oh my god, that would be great. And also, if you're up for it, would you want to do like a, you know, project specific to the people that we are, you know, trying to
yeah,
reach out? And I was like, oh my god, that would be amazing. And like, just because like I have like nothing else going on, I have like all this time, and I'm like dying, itching to be like helpful
yeah,
in some way. It is not like, you know, it is not only to be helpful to other people, but you know, it is like kind of like uplift myself and my psyche
yeah,
as well. So that's how it started. And you know, I reached out to like they had a wish list of people that they wanted to, you know, have photos taken. Of course, it was like a
yeah,
really long list of people. So I started reaching out to them, and that's like when the, you know, New York started to opening again. So I started
yeah, yeah,
taking
yeah.
photos of all these incredible people. Every one of them was like super inspiring, and their
Yeah.
stories like
And the
um,
photos are amazing. People who
thank,
have not seen them yet, they're gorgeous. You could
thank
definitely
you.
check Ebru's profile right after this because there are a bunch of like really beautiful ones. So
It's, yeah, that like I'm really happy with that project. And I'm, to be honest, like I was really happy to connect with these people and hear about their experiences. And they're like um actually, like the For the Record project, this was like a very everybody had like something different. Like, you know, there's a
yeah,
rapper, there's a aerial dancer couple. I mean, everybody had like some other thing going on. So the collection of those people were actually really cool.
yeah. And it's really amazing to look at those photographs as well because like to your point, you've clearly paid attention to the fact that these are like people coming from a whole host of different backgrounds just because the NYC Nightlife United umbrella is so large.
Yeah.
And I think you really sort of like respected the fact that these are just like a bunch of different people. And so the images themselves really have a lot of that person's character, I think,
Well,
in it as
thank you.
well.
Well, the only, you know, conscious decision that I made for that project was to shoot it in color film. Like, I mean, I love black and white. Like for most of my personal projects, I actually shoot black and white, especially film. But for this one, I thought like I mean, all these people were like their personalities were very colorful to begin with. But also, I thought like I didn't want moody photos. I wanted like some silver of like
Well, yeah,
goodness of like I don't know like
we'd
I
all
just
spent like, yeah.
yeah, right, like all
Well, just
like
because
we
we'd all
haven't
spent
seen
like 3 months
anyone.
like locked up. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it was
exactly.
that, you know,
Like now is not the
that's
time for moody.
exactly
Like,
that's the other thing too, like you know they got to dress up for it, like most of them were like this is like the first time I'm like putting makeup on for like
yeah,
whatever month. So it kind of like it made me feel good that it made them feel good. So
yeah.
it was kind of like an energy exchange, but like you know all portrait sessions are like that anyways, so it was really good.
Well, and I know you, there is a zine, right, of those that some of those portraits that is going slash went to the NYC Nightlife United backers.
Yeah, I mean, those are like, so these, both the ones that you got and also this scene, they were like offered as rewards
Yeah,
for their Kickstarter campaign. So we basically printed as much as it was ordered. So
yeah,
it is not something they can buy right now.
yeah.
But like, I don't know the plans. Like maybe when they're raising money again, maybe we'll offer it again. But I don't know. For now, like they're all gone. I'm happy that they're all gone.
Is it sort of like the type of project where you can kind of see yourself just kind of continuing it?
Yeah, definitely. Like I really like I enjoy like I mean with some of the people I actually made like we got along so well and we shot like more than once actually. We like after this project was over we shot again, which I loved. And I hope to continue it, but you know, right now like nobody wants to shoot. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, when things settle down a little bit more, then probably.
so I guess that sort of a tees up another question is like, obviously things are a little weird right now.
Little.
A lot of weird all the time. But so how has like obviously you're a photographer. Like how has the current kind of distancing and stuff like how have you been working around that or has it just kind of meant that you've had to stop shooting almost entirely?
Well, you know, at the beginning, like I mean, at the beginning, I stopped like completely, and right now, like you know, December is usually a slow month, anyways, like towards the end, and like the amount of shoots, I'm talking about like the work shoots, like the way I make my
Yeah.
money. They definitely like I don't even know, like I can't even give you a percentage, but they like I got some shoots, but it was so little, like compared to what it was last year or the year before, and it is only understandably so. And like you mentioned, like I work mostly with musicians, and nobody's touring, even though like you know they're putting out like
There's
some
not,
people
yeah, the press cycle is not the same.
exactly like you know they're not, yeah, there's like no publicity, no album artwork, like the ones that are they're doing, they're trying to find photos from like previous shoots and stuff like that. So I mean it is understandable, but the ones that I've done so far, they're kind of like I always like shooting like without assistance. Most of the time it is usually me and the person. Like I always think that it is like that's the way to go if it is possible. Like I mean obviously sometimes like you have to have people helping you, but so the shoots shrank down to like me and the person only, and like me with a mask and with a longer lens, and the studio that I work out from, which is my partner's, it's called Brooklyn Grain.
Yes.
It is like surrounded by windows, so we just like open the windows, like all sorts of like stuff that I need to do like
Yeah.
one portrait shoot. But I missed the old pace, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes
So
sense.
that's so the number of the shoots decreased, the amount of the people in the shoots decreased, like which is
Yeah.
kind of like better because like people who doesn't have anything to do in the shoots are not there, so it's kind
Yeah.
of better in a way. But yeah, does that
Yeah.
did that answer? I
A little
always
more
like
intimate.
I start like talking and then like I
You're
get
good.
lost in my own.
No, it makes it more interesting because my question, like, it'll start with something, but I'm honestly much more interested in seeing where you go with it. So,
Cool.
but yeah, I think one of the other things that I thought was really sort of fun about some of the way that you've talked in interviews about shooting musicians is sort of the very different personalities as far as like people who want to be photographed and people who super fucking don't. And I was sort of wondering if you could kind of expand on that a little bit because I know like you have sort of like a creative partnership with a number of these musicians that you've developed relationships with over time. Like I remembered seeing your stuff for Brooklyn Vegan because I was shooting for them around the time as well, and I kept being like, "Holy shit, whose photos are these? They're so cool." But then I realized also, like, because I was following Marissa Nadler online, I was like, "Oh my god, that's the same photographer. Like, she can also do this. What the hell?" So I was wondering if you could talk like a little bit more about just some of your like creative relationships with musicians. Also, like the fact that a lot of them hate being photographed just cracks me up because I've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is like I always say, like I joke around and say I made a career out of like photographing people who doesn't want to be photographed, like which
Yeah.
is true. And I get it. Like I personally hate being photographed with everything I have. Like I just hate being in photos. I'm like so conscious that this is happening here. Like it is a thing. So I get it. Like I totally get it. And especially, you know, if you've been doing it for so long, it is kind of like part of your job, right? Like
Yeah.
you just have to bear with it. And it is like, you know, you're in the middle of a festival, forget about like the publicity and album artwork shoots. Even those people don't want to do most of the time. But like, you know, you're like in the middle of a festival, you're enjoying, you know, your like your drink, you're with friends, and then all of a sudden your publicist drags you to get your photo taken for, like, you know, it's just
Yeah.
I get it, I totally understand it. But at the same time, I have to say that it is incredibly important. Like, I mean, it is a visual documentation of these musicians at a certain time. And if for nothing, like historically, it is important. Like, it's just important. Like, even like what you were wearing or how your hairstyle was, or like
Yeah.
whatever it is, like, or like, oh, you were actually at that festival, or, you know, you were in Brooklyn doing your press rounds or whatever. Like, you know, so it is really, really important. And some musicians get it and some don't, which is fine. Like I'm not blaming anyone who doesn't want to be photographed, but you know, for example, Marissa, she's a very visual person and she knows what she likes, and like our visual tastes are like really aligned, like, so it is like so easy to work with her for me, and I really enjoy spending time with her. Like, you know, she's just so fun to photograph, and she definitely values the process. So like I think that's like that's the key. Like once you give importance to that, then even you without knowing, like you build relationships with, you know, photographers and artists, and I think it is really important. I've been obsessed with podcasts, so I've been listening
Yeah.
to a lot of like photographers podcasts, and there's this one photographer talking about David Bowie, how he was saying that, yeah, like, you know, most people don't want to be photographed, but for example, David Bowie, like let's say he's giving you 5 minutes, and during that 5 minutes he's like present, like he's like
Yes.
there, he's doing his best so that you can do your best, so that the end result would be the best it could
Yeah.
be. And like you know, when you think about it that way, like, yeah, so if you're giving your time already, you might as well enjoy it and make it worthwhile, so at least at the end you'll get something
Yeah.
good. So I think like that's like incredibly important, like in so many ways, like being present, like being present is important, period. Like even if you're not like being photographed, but
Yeah.
so And I really enjoy, like, for example, Zola Jesus, Chelsea
Yeah.
Wolf,
Yeah.
and uh, who else? I don't want to, like, there's so many people who actually values
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
photography, and they
I think looking
appreciate
at
it.
the sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, you're all good.
I was gonna say looking at the project section on your website too, it's like it's very clear that there are some people where you've like really developed that relationship and they sort of have kind of recognized that like you are somebody who gets like what they're doing and how they're presenting themselves and like it's sort of interesting to see in that project section like the sort of the range of people that you've sort of worked with in that capacity because like I've also seen that you've like worked with people more than once but it seems
Yeah.
like there's a little bit of like a separation between like the people you collaborate with and the people that you like return to working with.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a really good observation. And the projects under the projects are like my personal projects. It is like, I mean, I try to do them with people who actually wants to be photographed.
Yeah.
Like, so it is like, like, if I'm gonna put that much time in it, they like, so it is kind of like a perfect collaboration, and like it's they're the people whose visual taste is like on the same line with mine, or their music is like the type of the music that I love, or their personality, like I, you know a combination of lots of
Yeah.
things needs to happen, because like people think that like being photographed is like you're doing 2 clicks and that's it, but it's actually not that at all. Like, so it is really time consuming to do projects, do prints, like the zines and stuff. So I want to make sure that like I spend my time on the people who also appreciates it back. So
I guess one thing I think is sort of interesting that you brought up is also like you're working with people who kind of are um, like visually compatible
mm,
as far as like they get what you're doing, they like what you're doing, and so that's why they're coming to you. And I think it's sort of I've seen this on like the visual art side of things with like other like with musicians where sometimes they're like, oh well, you're an artist, like you must be able to do this thing that's completely unrelated to everything that I've seen you do. And I wonder if you sort of get that as a photographer
oh
sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It is like, but it is, that's the thing, like, so like I'm doing photography for a living. So like, and it is also when you're photographing someone, it is not only like your project, it is like a combination of things. So you cannot, like, I mean, sometimes I put together inspiration boards. I'm like, oh my god, did I put this together? This is like not me at all. But it is like it kind of matches their music. It is like
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense for what they're doing, and I'm capable of doing it. And at the end there's something about it that makes it my own too. So it is kind of like a
Yeah.
combination of, yeah, I'll do like something really colorful, but then I'll catch a mood that I like. It is
Yeah.
so even if sometimes I get upset when they bring me like inspiration photos of other photographers. I'm like,
And you're like,
no,
no,
no, like, I mean, that's totally cool, but like, if you're sending me 10 inspiration photos and those 10 photos belong to the same photographer, maybe you should,
just time it. Yeah.
hire that person. So that kind of is difficult. But other than that, like, I'm always humbled that like somebody would want me to make their photos. So I'm like, I'll
I
take
mean,
it.
as much as I think that's like a healthy attitude to have, like also obviously they want you to take photos of them because you're fucking awesome. So, like, give yourself a little credit. Come on.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. But like the personal projects, like let's put it this way, personal projects are 100% my taste,
Yeah.
and like it is kind of like I find the people like that's like a perfect
Yeah.
match, like match made in heaven. And every other one, like commissioned, is like it is like a other kind of collaboration, I
Yeah.
guess.
You're sort of, it's your take on what they're coming to you for.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense though. I mean, like also just because you like are clearly putting a lot of thought into what you're doing. So I think like that really shows in the end product. So that probably has a lot to do with why folks are coming to you in the first place.
I'm like purple. I'm not normally not this color.
Sorry.
Look,
But
Caroline.
yeah. So we've been talking for like not quite an hour, but I want to make sure that you have time to tell people where they can check out more of your work, how they can support your work, um, anything, hopes, dreams that we haven't talked about.
Well, you can, if you're in Philly, you can check out the show at Big Day Film Collective for sure. And my Instagram is my first name and last name. And I actually heard you. You actually said my name pretty good.
Okay, good, because I Googled it and tried to find like a whole bunch of YouTube videos.
It is Ebru Yildiz.
Okay.
And also the eyes don't have the dots on them, but
Yeah.
English edition.
I don't know how to do that with my phone. I'll try. It'll be
No,
a
it is all good. No, but even I don't do it, so you're all good. Yeah, so my Instagram is my name and last name. My website is ebruyildiz.net. And yeah, I also have a separate website for the Death by Audio book, which is lastdaysofdeathbyaudio.com. That's
cool.
That's it.
Awesome. I'll
That's a
try.
lot.
And if you've made it this far in the video, awesome. And I am gonna put that information in the description when it saves, making sure that it saves. By the way, I don't think that you can see the comments because I'm the one that's hosting, but they're just full of people who think that you're the greatest. So wanted to make sure that like Maria Percaro, hi Maria.
Hi Maria.
And a whole host of other names that I do not recognize. So, you know, lots of people singing your praises.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, I actually see it.
Oh, good. Yeah. The last time I did this, the other people couldn't see. So,
yeah.
That's great. Good.
Cool.
Awesome.
I checked out like your work. Like, I mean, not, I already knew your work. I checked out your interviews. They were really cool. So it is kind of like the way you described why you do what you do. And even like, I mean, I like the part you were talking about healing. That's like, even if it is like scar tissue of, someone, like it might look grotesque, but it is like the process of healing. I thought that was a very cool way to put it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. And now I'm going to go off screen and turn pink. So, but it was really nice to actually get to talk to you and like meet you and like turn bright red with you. So,
yeah. Well, you haven't. You're like still, your complexion looks great. Perfect.
I'm cheating. I have a ring light right now. So, but yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. It was really nice to like meet you after like seeing your work for a million years and thinking it was the fucking coolest. So
thank you
I really
so much.
appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you taking the time. You asked me to do it, really.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you saying yes. So
cool. So I don't even know how to get out of this. And so you have to pick me up.
The stream. Yeah, I'll end the stream and then I'll save it. So thank you for everybody who watched. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.